Previously on Patrick Explains.
I thought you were finally on your way back to the city.
Wow, I feel so awake right now.
It's 3 a.m.
Do you think it's that tea he's been drinking? Is there caffeine in it?
Patrick, what's going on?
Nothing. I just wanted to come back, see you guys, and have a chat.
What's with the camera?
Oh, I'm recording this so I can put it on the internet, obviously.
I think we're ignoring the bigger question. Who's that person next to the camera?
Sup?
Oh, that's just my intern.
How the hell do you get an intern?
Usually I'm here to talk about movies I think are underrated, that don't get the attention they deserve, but this one is different. I want to talk about the biggest movie of 2017, a movie that pretty much everyone who watches movies has seen. I want to talk about Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, because for some reason, a whole lot of people don't like this movie. A lot of people are really angry about it. Now, instead of telling you why you should see it, since everyone watching this already has, I want to tell you why I love it, because I do. I think this movie is goddamn incredible. It is easily the best Star Wars movie since The Empire Strikes Back, and today, we're gonna talk about why. So I realize I already lost a lot of you right from the title of this video. Some of you are only here because this showed up in your recommendations and you wanted a new opportunity to tell a stranger about why you hate this movie, but I just want to say something right up front. If you are a person who thinks that SJWs or diversity or feminism ruined this movie, or if you're going to tell me that I'm a Disney shill, or if you're going to tell me that I should watch a 5-hour rant by some angry guy on YouTube, or if you think I should kill myself because I liked a movie,
Do people really care that much about Star Wars?
yeah, Mum, they really do. But everyone should just remember, this is a film about space wizards intended for children. I'm not saying you shouldn't take it seriously, just maybe don't get too angry about it. We're not talking about gun control here. We're talking about a movie about space wizards intended for children. Anyway, it sucks that I feel like I have to say that, and it's probably not even worth wading into this shitstorm anyway, but honestly, I just love this movie, and I want to talk about it. Before I start talking about The Last Jedi, I need to quickly run through my history with Star Wars because context matters. I mostly love the original trilogy. I think the prequels are generally not good, even if they contain some cool ideas. I think The Force Awakens is pretty good. Yeah, it plays things super safe and basically just hits all the beats from A New Hope, but the movie had to do 3 things. It had to feel like Star Wars again, it had to introduce new characters that we wanted to follow into future movies, and it had to bridge the 30-year gap in the story. It did ridiculously well at the first 2, and with the third, it did okay. It's a little frustrating that we don't really know what the political landscape of the galaxy is and how the Republic works and what the significance of the Hosnian system being destroyed actually is, but I also get that they wanted to return to a familiar dynamic. I don't need to see Snoke, a Star Wars story, to understand who that guy is and what his deal is. So now that The Force Awakens had brought Star Wars back to the thing that we loved and was no longer 2 hours of Hayden Christensen green screened into ugly CGI, where did we go from here? We've got all this set up, we've got a hell of a cliffhanger ending, so what comes next? A lot of people had a lot of demands for this movie, explanations and answers and confirmations of fan theories, and look, I made a whole video about that. But personally, those weren't really my top priorities. I just wanted something new. I didn't want another beat-for-beat repeat of the original trilogy. I wanted Star Wars to surprise me, to expand the scope of what a Star Wars movie could be. And also, of course, I wanted a rip-roaring good time. And that is exactly what I got. Right from the opening scene, I could tell something was unique about this movie. The movie begins with a space battle that is seriously one of the best space battles in the entire series, but near the end, it does something amazing. In Star Wars, we've seen a lot of battles, and in those battles, we've seen a lot of random rebel pilots die, but I've never really cared about them. No disrespect to Biggs and Porkins, but they were never really characters. But The Last Jedi shines a spotlight on Paige Tico, and for 2 minutes, she becomes the star of the movie. Paige's desperate attempt to drop the bombs is more suspenseful and more emotional than anything in a battle scene since Luke's trench run. And as the movie reached this shot, I thought, holy shit, I've never seen this in a Star Wars movie before. And I've noticed a lot of people don't want that. They don't want new things in their Star Wars, and I think that's kind of a bummer. One of the reasons I love The Empire Strikes Back is that it's constantly surprising. The characters grow and change, it shows us amazing new planets and creatures, it changes our conception of Star Wars. And the most disappointing thing about Return of the Jedi is how it doesn't really do that. It mostly gives us a lot of things we've seen before, like a Death Star or Tatooine. Its big new additions to the mythos are a forest and the revelation that Stormtrooper helmets can be played as drums. Which is actually kind of cool. But The Last Jedi isn't content to recycle Star Wars' greatest hits and just revisit old planets and reveal that everyone is related to someone that we've met before. It has a story to tell and a mythology to expand. I love that this movie finally shows us how the 1% live in this galaxy. It finally has someone use the Force to switch on a lightsaber. It finally gives us an idea of what Obi-Wan meant when he said,
"Strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine."
It gives us great new Force abilities that feel like natural extensions of what we've seen before. And speaking of the Force, no other movie explains it as well as Luke does here. To quote an email Jonah Hill once wrote describing a Jump Street Men in Black crossover, "It's clean and rad and powerful." I want to bring up something that doesn't get talked about enough. Star Wars has always been weird. Remember the cantina scene? Remember Figrin Dan and the modal nodes? Remember how there's a fucking devil in there just chilling at the bar? And a one-eyed tentacle creature in the trash compactor? Since the very beginning, Star Wars has been full of weird shit, and The Last Jedi lives up to that legacy. The giant alien cow thing that Luke milks is one of my favorite additions to this whole series. And if you don't like it, no offense, but you have boring taste and I don't want to be friends with you. But also, we've got the fish nuns and a hellmouth where the movie goes all David Lynch and those crazy things hanging out on Canto Bight. Oh yeah, Canto Bight, you know, that section of the movie that people hate, where they say nothing happens and it should just be entirely cut out of the movie. I could spend several minutes here talking about how it's important that we see the oppressed people in the galaxy and the hope that the Resistance symbol inspires. I could talk about how the failures here caused by Poe and Finn are essential teaching moments in both of their arcs, but what I really want to mention are three very important things. Number one, a drunk goblin puts coins in BB-8 and that rules. Number two, it is now canon that Maz Kanata has had sex with Justin Theroux. Number three, watching rich people get their shit destroyed is one of the purest pleasures in all of cinema, and if you can't appreciate that, I feel sorry for you. Okay, but let's get serious here. For a long time now, I've had a beef with the original trilogy. See, Return of the Jedi reveals that Luke and Leia are twins, which makes Leia Darth Vader's daughter, and yet she seems to have zero connection to the Force and she gets zero closure with her father. Yoda says there is another, but then she doesn't get to do anything. Anyway, this is a long way of saying that the much maligned scene where Leia uses the Force to pull herself back into the ship thrilled me, because in one moment it told us that she did not spend the last 30 years trapped in Amber. Of fucking course she can use the Force. She's a goddamn Skywalker. Which leads me to another thing I love about this movie. It directly addressed something that I've thought about for years. That maybe the Jedi kinda suck.
What?
Like maybe their elitist monk-like rules where they bury all their emotions aren't especially healthy. And it's those strict rules that led Anakin Skywalker to freaking out and murdering a bunch of kids and becoming Darth Vader. And now we know that Luke tried to start a new Jedi Order and then pretty much the same thing happened all over again. So when Luke says the Jedi don't work and should just stop before they ruin things some more, I'm sitting there in the theater applauding and shouting, yes, thank you. But wait, let's slow down a little bit because that's not exactly what's happening here. Despite what Luke says at the beginning, the movie doesn't actually think the Jedi should end. After all, at the end, after Luke has learned and grown, he straight up says,
I will not be the last Jedi.
The movie doesn't want the Jedi to end, it wants them to evolve. This whole movie is about moving on from the past. I like The Force Awakens and I think it does a great job introducing interesting new characters, but the movie is obsessed with the past. It brings back the original status quo and the original conflict, and it's structured around story beats we've seen before, and full of images we've seen before. But The Last Jedi moves forward. I'm not going to spend 10 minutes explaining how immaculately crafted the character arcs are, because that's all covered in a great video on the channel Just Right that you should go watch, but the movie beautifully weaves together arcs for Rey, Finn, Poe, Luke, and Kylo Ren, in which they all learn from failure and move on from the past, finally all tying together right at the moment when Holdo tears a Star Destroyer in half in one of the straight up coolest moments in recent cinema, and if you're too hung up on the made up science in this fictional world of space wizards to enjoy that, then I weep for you. Because one more time, this is a movie about space wizards intended for children. But the point I'm making is that this is a movie about moving forward. It is not, as some people believe, about burning the past or killing the past or letting the past die. Kylo Ren, while probably the best new Star Wars character since Yoda, other than Dexter Jettster of course, is a selfish, entitled piece of shit. And while the movie presents his point of view, it does not endorse it. One of the weirder aspects of the backlash to The Last Jedi has been how many people take Kylo Ren's side, claiming the movie really does want to kill the past, and in the conflicting stories about that night in the Jedi training camp, they believe him, not Luke. The movie is not saying we should end the Jedi, it's saying we should take some of their lessons, but maybe not the dogmatic interpretation of their way of life. I mean, guys, Yoda shows up and straight up states the theme.
The greatest teacher failure is.
When it comes to its main themes, this movie is not subtle, and yet a whole lot of people miss what it's doing because they'd rather obsess about how, I don't know, force fields work. Now, while Rey, Poe, Finn, and Kylo all learn from their failures and grow as people, side note, Finn's arc is the best, and the moment when he wrecks Phasma and proudly declares himself to be rebel scum is my favorite moment in the movie. The best example of this is Mr. Lucas Skywalker, drinker of milk and catcher of big fish. Now, I love Luke Skywalker. I love him when he's whiny, I love him when he's heroic, and I really love him when he's conflicted. And in the conversation around The Last Jedi, I've discovered that a lot of people have misunderstood Luke Skywalker for a really long time. Luke's presentation here is one of the most controversial aspects of the movie. They took our hero and made him a sad, bitter old man, and yeah, I get it, it's a bit of a shock. Just look at Rey. She's shocked. She thought he was going to
walk out with a laser sword and face down the whole First Order.
And he has no intention of doing that. Now, I've spent an unhealthy amount of time reading the comments from this movie's detractors, and a ton of people wanted him to be off on that island learning ancient Jedi secrets, getting more powerful, and then showing up to like pull Star Destroyers out of the sky and becoming a Super Saiyan, I guess. But Luke Skywalker is not a power fantasy. A New Hope is not about an ordinary kid becoming the biggest badass in the galaxy. It's about an ordinary kid who wants to be a part of something greater, to have a purpose in the universe. And as his story goes on, he does that, but finds out that it's way more complicated than he thought. Turns out his family is a fucking mess. It turns out that he's a little bit angry, and every so often he needs to put on some Disturbed and get dark. Luke's a complicated guy, and to return to him 30 years later and have him be an ultra-powerful paragon of goodness would be pretty boring. You know who else is complicated? Rey. It's weird that she gets accused of being a flawless character who never makes mistakes because, man, she has got problems. She has no idea what to do with herself and keeps running to different people, hoping they'll provide her with some sort of guidance. She plainly states it.
I need someone to show me my place in all this.
And this brings us to the incredible moment when Kylo Ren reaches out his hand and offers her a place she can belong. These movies have had a lot of moments where bad guys ask good guys to join them, but this was the first time that I thought there was a chance the good guy might actually accept. And that is the mark of good storytelling. So I've talked a lot about how I wanted this movie to push Star Wars forward and do new things, and it did all of that. But I also said I wanted a rip-roaring good time, and it is absolutely 100% that. The thing begins with a space battle and ends with a desperate last stand where the Resistance has nothing to use but MS-DOS computers and janky little fighters on a salt planet, and porgs are popping up everywhere, and Phasma has a sweet spear, and every single thing in this scene rules so hard, and also this is the funniest goddamn thing.
I feel something.
You feel it?
Yes, I feel it.
That's the Force.
Really?
Wow, it must be really strong
Oh,
with
I've
you.
never felt any... Ow!
And yeah, guys, this movie is funny. I know you love old sourpuss Christopher Nolan and that stoic, dour tone he brings to everything, but lighten up. You ever see Goodfellas? That movie is funny. It's also scary and tense and emotionally devastating. A movie can make you feel different things. Humor is good. Why am I even explaining this? And unrelated, but I just want to mention how much I love Adam Driver's delivery of
blow that piece of junk out of the sky!
This is a movie about moving on. Moving on from failures and selfishness and self-loathing and empty heroics. Moving on from only certain families being special and everything being like it was 30 years ago. Moving on from the same old story beats and the same old status quo. I love Star Wars. I love the world and the characters and the feeling I get every time that the title hits the screen as the fanfare explodes out of the speakers. And watching The Last Jedi, I was hit by a thought. For the first time, I could see this story continuing for decades to come. It was the moment in the Battle of Crate when the Millennium Falcon arrives with Chewie in the pilot's seat and Rey operating the gun turret. My mind flashed forward years from now, and I thought about how we'll talk about Star Wars in terms of eras. There will be constants through the series. The Millennium Falcon will remain, but we'll talk about the era when Han Solo owned it, or the era when Rey did. And this was all because of things The Last Jedi did. This was no longer a story about special people from a few select bloodlines. This was a story about a whole galaxy, and the people who shape its future could come from anywhere. They could be anyone. From here, Star Wars could go anywhere. And each time I watch it, I found that idea more and more moving. I don't care who that kid with the broom is. It doesn't matter. What I do care about is the hope and determination I see in his eyes. Ever since George Lucas made that first film, Star Wars has been about how an ordinary person can escape their circumstances and become a part of something greater. And The Last Jedi is a movie that understands that. Okay, and now because I couldn't find a more natural way to incorporate them into the speech, I want to just mention a bunch of random little things I love in this movie. The incredible texture and color palette of Steve Yedlin's cinematography, John Williams' score, and how he weaves together countless leitmotifs from the entire series. This line.
Wipe that nervous expression off your face, 3PO.
The Giallo-esque design of Snoke's chamber, R2's cheap trick, when the Porgs are poking at the lightsaber, when the sad Porg looks at Chewie, when the Porg screeches during battle, when the Porg hits the window, when Chewie swats the Porg off the dashboard. Porgs are great. Puppet Yoda, the way DJ wears his boots around his neck, the moment when Hux thinks he can kill Kylo, when Poe rubs BB-8's belly, the whole design of Crate so that as warfare breaks out on the planet, it actually looks like it's bleeding. Luke's wink at C-3PO, the way Luke first saw Leia via a projection and the last time she sees him is a projection. See? It rhymes, like Lucas loves. This is a weird movie to talk about. This video ended up being longer than it should need to be because it's not enough to say why I think the movie is good. I also have to preemptively respond to all the people who are going to say, but why didn't you talk about this thing that's bad? Months ago, I said there was no way I would make this video, but the truth is that since December, I haven't stopped thinking about The Last Jedi. And to all the people who hate it, I wish that you could see what I see, because it's pretty great. And we're done. Guys, thank you so much. You were fantastic as always. Now I am going to take this footage and put it online. I'll see you later.
You don't think anyone is actually going to watch that, do you?
I don't know. I would.
How about I say Jedi Schmedi? No.
Oh, hey guys, I'm just wrapping up production on a new video. Making these things is very complicated. There are so many parts of the process, from writing to production to post-production. Now, some of this I learned in college, but most of it I taught myself through a lot of trial and error over many, many years. And back when I was 20 years old and trying to figure out how to use lights and audio gear, I really wish I had something like Skillshare, who is sponsoring this video. Skillshare is an online learning community where you can take thousands of classes taught by professionals. So every step of the process from making videos, they've got classes on all of that. A premium membership gives you unlimited access to all of these classes. I use it a lot for learning new things in After Effects in particular. Just recently, Jake Bartlett's class on creating the VHS look was a big help for a project, and earlier today I was using Andre Angelo's class on cleaning up voiceovers. So don't spend years slowly teaching yourself this stuff like I did. Use the link in the description to sign up now for 2 free months of Skillshare with access to over 20,000 classes. Come on, just do it now. Go. Hey guys, thank you for watching, and I want to thank Elsie the intern for the great work she did all summer helping us make these videos. She is back at college now, so you should go subscribe to her channel so you can see the videos that she's working on, and hopefully we can get her back to help out again in the future. Then of course, the usual stuff, check out our podcast, follow me on all the social medias, check out our Patreon if you want to help us make these videos, and look, I know people will be angry at this video even though it's just me talking about why I like a movie. Please don't send me a 2,000-word email about why I'm wrong because I won't read it. And look, this is the last time I'm gonna talk about Star Wars or The Last Jedi in a video for a while, at least for the rest of the year. It's just exhausting at this point, and I've said everything I want to say. So, that's all.
I'm finished.